Yes, hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV. My name is Philip Mulisa, and this morning we are discussing gender-based violence. We are looking at our communities and how the scale of gender-based violence is unfolding in the different communities, but also trying to establish what the fundamental causes are and how we can solve this challenge for once and for all from Uganda, but also largely in the world, because this is a virus that affects every citizen of the world that is exposed to it. My name is Philip Melissa, and before we get into the depth of the conversation, I will invite my amazing panel here to say hello to you, our viewers, and certainly we shall head into the depth of the conversation. I will start with Miss Barbara Kia Etum. Barbara, greetings, welcome to the conversation. And here on Civic Space TV, we normally say, talk to us about where you are and one unique thing you think we might want to know about your particular location. Yes, Barbara.
Yes, thank you so much, our viewers, and thank you, Phil. My name is Husna Barbara Kietom. I'm the Executive Director with Asia Women Initiative, operating in Changwali Refugee Settlement and Hoima. Wezesha is a Swahili word that means to enable. So we enable women to speak up against gender-based violence and any other form of violence that they probably face. One unique thing about my place is there are so many unique things. One is we have the oil site. So we are known as the oil city now. We are in the oil city. Then we also have a stadium that has been constructed. Then we also have an airport. Oh my God, we have so many unique things around my place. So thank you. We shall discuss more.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing with us, and good to have you in the conversation. And certainly, the airport, the oil, and the stadium, amazing infrastructure and features for that particular part of the country. Thank you for joining us. I also have here Miss Florence Tumuhire. Florence is the ED of Chugezi Women in Development. Florence, greetings. You're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Philip, for this space and the agenda, the organization that has provided the space. Tumhire Florence, as you mentioned, I'm the ED, and I normally love to say team leader at Kigezi Women in Development. We are located in Kigezi sub-region. Maybe our unique thing is we are, most of our districts in Kigezi districts, they are located at the border with Rwanda and the border with Congo. So for us, we have the uniqueness is of sharing the porous border with other neighbors. And what does that mean? That gender-based violence is mostly at the center of Ruchiga and Kaware. We mix with the Rwandese so much. They have very beautiful girls. When they cross to Uganda, they are preferred. The men say that for them, they are soft. They are very beautiful. They don't do heavy work. So in some cases, the men encroach on them, and that spills to gender-based violence. So we have that uniqueness, and the porous border also provides for the men also do some barter trade. So they cross over to those neighboring countries, and it fuels gender-based violence.
Thank you. Oh, what an introduction. Thank you, Florence, for joining us and for those specifics of your particular area. And
and maybe the purpose of quit existence and establishment was majorly to work on gender-based violence. Quid was started in 1996 after the Rwanda genocide. There was so much mingling and intermediaries. Women, some women came to take refuge, And then some remained as squatters, because when the war ended, some men came when they found when their wives had already mixed with other men and they had produced other children. That's the genesis of QUID, how we are working on issues of women and orphans and other vulnerable children, and majorly focusing on gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florence, and certainly we'll enjoy hearing from your experience from the Kigezi sub-region. I too have Mr. Lena Godfrey Lokwang. Lena, greetings, and you've heard the ladies that spoke before you, and certainly you are welcome to the conversation, and please speak to us.
Good morning, and I am humbled to be part of this panel today. Of course, ladies first, and I've loved the ladies from Kigezi and then from Hoima, the Holy City. I am called Lena Godfrey Lokwang Apalo Ronokodos from Karamoja. Karamoja, when you want to talk about accountability, just say Karamoja, the one will hear you, even when you have done nothing. About the topic of today, yes, we have virgin of information in Karamoja about gender-based violence, especially those that has been structurally imposed. Of course, sometimes you may think, do we have love in Karamoja? Yes and no. Sometimes our women are married before they love, and they start to cultivate love as they go. Some people say, in Karamoja, you have to struggle. Is there romance? Yes or no? But it's all about how to understand. Karamoja is a land endowed with a virgin culture, still intact in a way, where we marry women, not one, as many as preferred, and paying dowry is something, not one cow, not 10 cows, 100 plus as preferred, and probably this is what perpetuates the cycle of violence. I have bought you, I have to use you the way I want. Sometimes that mind is there. And so it keeps the woman low and receptive without any option. The culture entangles the woman, meaning after I have given my dowry to another relative, I cannot have another voice. Maybe this and that. Is it changing? Yes and no. And I'm happy to share with you. Karamoja, particularly Kabong, is bordering Kenya from the east and South Sudan from the west. So this is where all cultures are still intact. Service delivery is very low. And so gender-based violence can also be at a high peak and yet not talked about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey, for giving us that brief in your introduction, and we can't wait to hear more of what actually that breeds in the region, especially that you speak of the trends in giving out dowry and the attitude towards that particular activity. Thank you so much. Good to have you on the conversation. And lastly, but not least, I have a counselor, Ms. Molly Businje. Businje, greetings. You're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Businje Mole Kateiwa. I'm a counselor, I'm a midwife. I come from the land of milk and honey. That is Mbara. And I'm a family and marriage therapist. And I'm also a CEO of Habrane Family Connect, which is a YouTube channel where I share about family, marriage, and also community engagement. That is where my heart lies. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on this platform.
Thank you so much, Molly, for joining us today to speak about gender-based violence. And colleagues, let me start here. The United Nations says that 50% of women experience gender-based violence before the age of 19. That is a global report. But we also have the Uganda Human Rights Commission that tells us that about 56% of married women in Uganda, and they create a gap there between the age of 15 and the age of 39, have faced some form of gender-based violence. And moving quickly out of there, the Afrobarometer tells us that of all the people that experience this vice, only 32% are able to seek help from the relevant authorities or institutions that can give them help. When I think through and listen to my community, I remember stories from my grandmother who used to say that while they grew up, they knew that a woman was not allowed, for example, to eat chicken. A woman was not allowed to eat grasshoppers. And it's now a grasshopper season here in Uganda and many other things. But the world has greatly evolved and very many things have changed in this world. I want to, even before we discuss these details of the percentages and figures and what are the cases and what they, I want to understand from you, and perhaps Barbara, you will do me a service of defining this gender-based violence in the modern times. When this was mentioned 30 years ago, everyone thought about women. But today you have men that are crying because of things that were known to be affecting women. I want to hear that contemporary definition of gender-based violence today and what it actually is in our communities. Yes, Barbara.
Okay. Thank you so much, Phil. It is really nice having this call today. It is very timely because, as you are aware, we are approaching the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. That is on 25th. It's from 25th to 10th of December. And our theme, the global theme this year is Unite. Yes, that is just something I'm pointing out for the 16 days. It's Unite to end digital violence against all women and girls. Yeah. But allow me go back to what you've just asked. What is gender-based violence? This is something we've been singing for the past few decades. And I'm pretty sure when you talk of gender-based violence, a picture of a woman comes to your mind, right? When we hear about gender-based violence, automatically you're going to think of a woman. You're going to think of a girl who is being mishandled or mistreated or whose right is being violated. So what is gender-based violence in the modern era? Where we are now looking at not only women, but men as well. When it comes to gender-based violence, both men and women actually experience this. It has been misquoted that only women face gender-based violence, but we do realize that men actually face gender-based violence, but the challenge is they do not speak out. They remain silent because probably the society or the cultural norms or the, just the ego and whatever it is, they grew up knowing, they know men are not supposed to speak out in case they're violated, in case they're, being offended in any way. They choose to remain silent, and yet sometimes these forms of violence manifest. We hear that a man has been actually killed by a woman. That is really extreme. Why? Because this man has been undergoing violence and he has been remaining silent. I mean, this is gender-based violence for the men and the boys. So those statistics show that women disproportionately bear this burden, which is true. According to Uganda's 2023 police crime report, out of 15,184 reported domestic violence cases, 10,792 victims were female adults, compared to 3,243 male adults. So, Philip, you can get a picture of what I'm trying to say when we say men do not report these cases. Yeah? It doesn't mean the 3,000 were the only ones violated. There are actually more than that, but you can see the gap, the reporting gap. 10,000 women are able to speak up and report these cases of domestic violence, and only 3,000 report. And I'm sure they report when things are now getting out of hand. Yeah. So this is not something we are trying to encourage. We're actually trying to encourage men to speak up. Just like we've
So
been
in other words,
yeah.
when I listen to you, Barbara, it sounds you are saying that in the modern era, actually both sexes are exposed to the dangers of what we are calling gender-based violence. There's violence instituted against women, there's violence instituted against men, and therefore any efforts to yield in on this one should be targeted to both men and women. Is that what you're telling us?
Exactly, Philip. And I want our viewers, our listeners out there to know that silence is not safety at any point. It is actually a breeding ground for violence. Okay? When you choose to remain silent, you are creating a breeding ground for violence to occur at a bigger, a deeper level.
Thank you, Barbara. I'll cut you short at that, but thank you so much for that introductory communication you've given us about this whole concept and how it is unfolding in our communities. Thank you so much, Barbara, for that. And I want to listen from Florence here. Florence, you know, Barbara has told us about how domestic violence is being instituted out in the modern era, but I want us to create a comparison of what actually is the difference between the gender-based, the traditional gender-based violence, which he also mentioned that actually when you mention GBV, what comes to your mind is a woman or a girl that is being tortured or mistreated somewhere. But looking at the past and the present, where is the difference in the different forms of gender-based violence and actually which is more prevalent in our communities? Yes, Florence.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to first say that gender-based violence is, these are harmful acts which are directed at an individual. So when you ask me of the past, the gender-based violence, the traditional one, and now the gender-based violence of today, they differ slightly because earlier they were rooted in the culture and the cultural beliefs, where a girl child, a boy child was preferred against a girl child. You find a boy child is the one to inherit, is the one to take leadership, to contribute to decisions. But now of recent, with the introduction of this digital era, now there have some forms of gender-based violence which are related to the digital. Like you find the people are being harassed on internet, they are being abused. You find they are drawing cartoons, TikTok, you find some funny photographs. So that is another form of gender-based violence that has now entered into with this era of digital. And it is very dangerous because you are affected, you are even abused on your phone, when you are using this internet. So you find now the gender-based violence which you used to have, where women were bought through dowry, where women were left at home, not attending school, not being given an opportunity, but now they have now come in another form of gender-based violence, where there is cyber harassment, where you are harassed on your gadget, where somebody follows you even to your bed, because when you open your phone and you find somebody is attacking you on your phone, so it means you cannot hide anywhere. So now GBV has now become very complex. When you are planning to address gender-based violence, you have to use different strategies so that the people are saved, people are not harassed, people are not abused, and the power is abused, because when you are, for example, sometimes there are some women who have some smartphones, but you'll find your husband wants to check on whom did you, for example, today, whom did you chat with? I want to see who was, what was you were doing on that phone. Sometimes you are in the sitting room, you open your phone, and the spouse wants to see who is that person you are now chatting with. So you find they have come now, gender-based violence is getting another form, and which needs collective effort so that we also do away with it, or we have strategies at least to empower women, in fact, to empower. Even there are some women who also use it to check in the husband's phones, maybe when he's in the bathroom or what. She also, some women can also try to see who was chatting with the husband. And that one fuels a lot of gender-based violence in the home. And you find people are fighting, people are now neglecting the children. You find some spouses are leaving the home. And now, that is what I can say, that there is now a difference in the
Thank you,
traditional
Florence. But
GPV.
before you leave that point, and
Yes.
I want to hear from you, when you talk about empowering the women, there is a general feeling in society, and I've attended conferences where they say the rise of empowered women, both financially, academically, has actually contributed to the shifting of the balance of gender-based violence from being more to the side of women to now involving men more. How do you respond to that? Is it actually true that the work of Chigezi Women in Development is encouraging women to go ahead and sort of revenge against the men for the actions that they faced in the past?
That is a very interesting question, and thank you for asking it, particularly to me. At Chigezi Women in Development, we are promoting gender equality, where we feel that when the men, women, girls, and boys are given equal opportunity, that is when the development can be gender responsive. Because when you empower a woman and a man is not empowered, you will find at the decision-making table, when somebody is not informed, will not, of course, contribute to objective decisions. So for us at QUID, we are looking at providing equal opportunities. If a girl child goes to school, let also the boy child go to school. Because at the end of it, that is the boy who will marry your daughter. When the boy is not educated, it means they will not have balanced decisions. And sometimes there are some men, when they marry an educated woman, they feel threatened, and sometimes they abuse that lady. When you go to office and you come back, she will be, which man was she rubbing shoulders with? But if both the husband and the wife, if both are working class, for example, they have what to do, it means the man, if he sees what he has on his table as a workload, he will think, know that if he was engaged in work, also the woman was engaged in work. And when you empower only one side, it means you are not balancing the equation. So at QUID, we look at empowering both the women and the men. But why do we, in fact, why do we put more emphasis? Because the women were left behind long time due to the deep-rooted culture and beliefs. So we are looking at, for example, when you look at gender equity, when somebody is left behind, you provide that balance so that gender can come can at least be balanced with the gender which had left them behind. But we don't encourage to empower only women and then we leave their husbands. Because when they come to decision-making tables, it means someone will be informed and another one will be lacking information, and that one can use the masculinity energy to abuse physically or in any form that wife.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Florence, for that. And it is a big concern in the communities. And when you hear the conversations that go on in the different spaces, it is one of the matters that keeps being pointed to as because of gender-based violence in the different spheres. I want to hear from you,
before I leave this
Mr.
point,
Lokwan.
I want to encourage.
And
I want to first encourage the actors to look at providing equal opportunities so that we have both empowered men and women. Thank you.
thank you so much. And Mr. Godfrey, I want to hear from you. In your introduction, you did speak about the fact that your region, Karamoja, is still very synced in the cultural practices, including in the marriages. You speak about dowry and how people part with a lot of property to get wives. I don't know if it's also done for the husbands. And this gives a sense of ownership to this person. I want to understand how Karamoja is actually dealing with this challenge that comes from that particular cultural practice, especially that you have to balance your culture, not losing it out, but also making sure you uphold the rights and privileges of persons in the community you are living in the modern world. How is Karamoja, your community, and particularly you as a person that is not only aware, but also an activist in this particular sphere of life, how are you dealing with this challenge specifically in your area? Yes, Godfrey.
In Karamoja, we have female genital mutilation practiced in Amdat and Moroto, where the human person, the women, they cut the clitoris. And then we have in Karamoja early child and forced marriages, where as long as a child can get pregnant, according to the cultural practices, it's assumed that that child is ready for marriage. And we also have things like the honor killing. These are violent acts, including murder committed against women, especially if they are seen to be a different gender. So, for example, if you are not a male or a female and oriented differently, you are automatically perceived as a wizard, a witch, and so a product that cannot continue to perpetuate in the community. This I call still because of gender. And the idea of widowhood practices in Karamoja, they are humiliating rituals that are done to died. And these are mandatory, especially. And there are so many humiliating ones. For example, one is when your husband has died, that's a way of mourning. You have to get a stone and then they place it in your vagina to stay there for all the mourning period. This can be so tough, carrying the hollow stone the whole way around everywhere. It's a bit tough. We also know that in Karamoja, we have these patriarchal norms, which is male-dominated in authority. And the fact that men continue to contribute for dowry is a painful venture to them. So it's also another injustice to men to continue looking for dowry, which is painful, and it has caused a lot of men to die as they go for raiding and so forth and so forth. And how are we going around with this? We have tried as a member of the Center for Conflict Resolution and an activist, we have tried to ensure we sensitize people and we allow people to give safe spaces, especially in health service, in health centers. There are also organizations where women now report cases and also men about how they are getting along with their household challenges. We try also to amplify women's voices in spaces where they have not been. For example, in meetings, we also have what we call women to women talk, where we allow women to talk to fellow women on how to raise their issues clearly. And also we try to advocate for, okay, please.
Yes, I want to quickly hear from you, because what you talk about now seemingly would appear to be as though you are challenging the cultural practices that some of the persons in the community believe in and love. How is the reception of your message and the activities you undertake in the communities where you go, especially to the people that are very culturally grounded?
We always believe that you empower the person to talk about their own issues. So in Karamoja, we have a group called Women Peace Forum. This is a group which has packaged all the information that is oppressing women in communities and in a more creative manner present. And we have avenues where we present this. One of those is women conferences, where we call all women to talk about the things and come up with resolutions. Secondly, community meetings where now women at community levels are able to raise their own issues because it is them affected. We feel the victim approach is more appealing than if I come and start imposing the pain. Probably there are those testimonies from a few individuals when they come and say, yes, I was treated like this, but now after a long time, I've done this. Now I don't want another person to have a similar challenge like I have had, and so forth and so forth. Another forum where we address this is the Karamoja cultural event, because it's there that we questioned. I happen to have been the secretary when we did the Karamoja cultural event, Kabong chapter in 2018, where we said, no, let us challenge harmful practices that has let us down as a culture. And we promote enhancing practices. And so one of those that came out clearly is the idea of women marginalization, gender-based violence, and then women and economics. And we say an empowered home is a rich home and is a respectable home. So why can't we challenge all these practices that undermine the home? And for your information, some people say the heads of households are men and so forth. But in Karamoja, I say the heads of households are women, because each home, each household is headed by a woman. Because a man can afford to have 5, 7 women, will he still remain the head of the household? Because he will be in several households and absent landlord. So to me, once you have this woman who is always there for our children, the family, the relatives, that is why we do the entry point and we empower households. This approach has worked when we encourage what we call the girls approach, that is gender learning systems. And this is where we help the man and the woman to think together across what are these things that we can do together? What are those that you can do alone? How can we improve this that we can do together to improve our household? And the children grow seeing their parents jointly planning. They grow seeing their parents are investing together. They grow seeing their parents leaving more house for their mother. That in turn becomes theirs. And in that way, we are inculcating respect, value for this household and for this woman. And we have realized a few households of this kind are the ones that are influencing change in Karamoja. And since my colleagues had said, Florence had talked about an empowered woman politically and so forth, we have also witnessed this, that sometimes I don't know what people think about empowerment. A few of our women members of parliament, MPs, ministers, immediately they enter in that arena, they dislodge their husbands. So sometimes that's why now a lot of gender-based violence is, because as much as they have time for the constituency, they don't have time for this man and so forth. Oh no, again, the man becomes of a lesser value. But yet in Karamoja, the moment you are married, you're already tied and perpetual. So some of these have caused scandals, and people take time to allow women get into leadership position. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Godfrey, for that contribution. It's quite great initiatives you're undertaking in Karamoja sub-region. Very important. We commend that. And Molly, I want to hear from you. You've heard the speakers here talk to us about both the past and the present challenges. And you hear, for example, Florence here talk about cases of cyber harassment, the challenges that have come with a smartphone in families. And I want to hear from you as a counselor. When you get victims of gender-based violence, especially those that are facing these modern challenges, how are you dealing with them? How are you able to speak to them and convince them, but also rehabilitate them from the challenges they have faced and make sure they're actually not going back with the same mind that they came to you before? Yes, Molly.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, when we talk about gender-based violence, it is a combination of so many things. Like you've had, apart from the past mindsets where people used not to value women, but like the previous speakers have said, of recent, most women have been empowered. But it's amazing that even with woman empowerment, we still have domestic violence. And now, like you were asking, that the previous speaker from Kalamoja was saying that the challenge with what people have, especially in our generation, people think empowerment, when you talk about woman empowerment, we are not, people I think understand it in a negative way. Because you've heard him say that one of the reasons they don't want to send people in parliament is that when someone gets empowered and they get a platform and they're exposed, now they neglect their families and then they don't even value their husband, and which shows that that is not really empowerment, because empowerment should give you more knowledge, more understanding, and even should even make you more humble, but not adding another dose of pride, and it's as if you're using it to revenge for what you have been going through. So that is where I think people misunderstand woman empowerment. But in my view, I think empowerment should be a whole holistic approach, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, and so that you are balanced, you have knowledge in all areas, and that knowledge helps you to do more and even help more people and even become a better person, not even becoming a worst version of yourself. Because if you become empowered and then now you start revenging on your family, on your husband, on the male figure, it shows that your empowerment lacks some virtues in it. So that is why I want to say. So as counselors, of course, when we receive people who are going through domestic violence, it is a whole holistic approach, because we want to know what is the cause. For us, at times we can think that the causes are these mere external factors that we see, but some of these causes go as back as our childhood traumas. What we went through, the mindset that we have carried, the baggage that we have carried, the fears that people have, the insecurities, and most of these causes that cause people to experience or to be involved or to abuse people, domestic and all other fashions of domestic violence. Most of them, they come from our childhood traumas. How we're treated, how we're raised, how our parents behaved, how the picture they had, as in it's a whole approach of things. So when we receive a person, we have to sit with them. Of course, we first do the first aid. If someone has physical injuries, of course, you give the first aid. Of course, if they are still emotional, you first counsel to first stabilize the person. But then after that, we don't stop there. We have to know exactly where did this start. What about we involve the family? We have to involve even the partners, whether they were, times it is between the violences between a partner, it's between a family, at the workplace. So all that holistic approach, we have to use different measures and different approaches of counseling and therapies to make sure that we dig out and know you as a person who has come to report for domestic violence, what is your contribution? Because at times, yes, we are beaten, but it's because of our contribution. So we want to know so that we are trying to uproot, because at times when we deal with only the branches and the leaves, you will just cancel the person, they become happy and they become well and they go back and then it repeats themselves. So our approach is that we deal with the root so that this person and the community around them or the family or the person they have found themselves in such domestic violence circumstance with, they are all helped, because it is not enough to help only the woman or the man and you leave the other person. That means if they go back, this one will be empowered, the other will not be empowered. So we look at a holistic approach involving the community. If there is need for involving the police, if there is need for involving the bodies that
Molly, see, you and I will agree that throughout history, whether it is culturally or through religion, those different phenomena in society have favored men more than women in the past. And today, that's why we speak about women empowerment. We have in our laws a whole chapter in the Constitution that talks about women emancipation and so on. And I want to ask, from where you sit as a counselor and the very many people you've worked on, do you notice or sense the desire by women who have been empowered or that have come to you as victims of gender-based violence to try to seek to revenge for the injustices they have faced in the past, to now push them back to the men that are in their lives today?
of course. And yes, like someone is holding a revenge, and or maybe someone has stereotypes or prejudice mindset against against men because of what they have gone through. Yes, we have seen those cases. That's why I said we go back and trace where is this coming from. Because, like I said, at times we think it is the issues with men, but most times the issues with women, because of how we're brought up, the environment we grew up in. So you carry all this baggage of mindsets and entitlement, and even with the woman emancipation, I think we have developed a sense of entitlement as women. Like you said, now if I went to police and I reported the domestic violence and my husband went, I want to believe that they would believe me more than my husband. Why? Because of the nature, they say that women, that mindset of women are a weak vessel. So it's as if we are taking advantage of that soft spot for us as women, use it against men. So that's why I'm saying that even when someone comes to us, we are aware of that mindset of some women, of course not all of them, but of some women, because I even see it in our communities these days. Like when people are looking for marriage partner, someone is like, I'm looking for someone who has money, who will do this for me, who will do this for me. I'm like, for you, what are you going to do for yourself? For you, what are you bringing on the table? So there is that mindset of some of us women, where to think that the advantage is to us. If we go to the police, most of us, even if I've done something, we will cry and put on crocodile tears and call and do emotional gymnastics there. And because men are always thought as if they are the worst creatures, so now we take advantage. But I want to believe that the trends are changing these days, because there are men who have come up to speak that even them are being abused, and we believe it. We have seen the statistics on TV. We have seen recently that women are beating men. I'm sorry, I come from Tungan, so my husband is always telling me about to beat me. But I at least we can see that the trends are changing, though it is not much, but we can see that it is changing. So the time is going to come when we will not be using that as a running shoulder as women. We'll have to real dialogue and really get to the root of the matter. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Molly, for that. And I think you comprehensively give us the mind of a counselor as regards gender-based violence. Colleagues, we are still on Community Voices Uganda here on Civic Space TV, and today we are having a conversation about gender-based violence in our communities, and certainly interested in drawing solutions to this challenge that continues to sandwich our communities wherever we come from. And colleagues, I want to, Barbara, I'm back to you here. And you said there are very many organizations here. We have already 5 organizations represented from the panel, but also the partner organizations back there are quite many that are speaking against gender-based violence. You have very many initiatives by the different organizations in the country, whether it is Justice Centers Uganda, whether it is WARNET, whether it is Eliezer Foundation, and very many big organizations that are doing something to this cause. And I want to hear from you in a refugee community. What is the organization doing in the refugee community? Because this is a highly fragile community. There are people who have left their homes. There are people who are just seeking shelter, being helped, in other words. And how easy or hard is it to handle them? But two, what are the challenges they face, and how do you think they can be assisted going forward to overcome these challenges in that refugee community? Yes, Barbara.
Yes, thank you so much, Philip. In a refugee setting, you realize this is a very fragile setting, and we have a very diverse community of people from more than 7 different countries. So this presents a very, very high level of challenge in terms of gender-based violence, prevention and response. I must say that the first thing someone faces, whether you're a refugee or not, by the virtue that you're going to a different place, you have been displaced without your choice, and you have to move from this place where you've lived. Let me say you were born and raised there for the past 50 years or so, and now you have to abandon that place and move to a whole different country. This also applies to our IDPs, internally displaced persons, for instance, like from Bududa. It is not something that you wish for, but it comes with very, very many challenges. For instance, cultural shock. You're going to move, for instance, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and you come to Uganda, where the language is completely different. You know, we were colonized by different colonies. Like, you literally have no idea what this woman or man is going to face. First of all, their culture is going to be attacked, the language, the food, name them. So these challenges are really broad. And for a woman, I must tell you, for a woman, it is way more than what men would face. This is a woman who will come, and then she will have to adapt to the new condition. If she is alone, you don't want to know the challenges that she's going to be faced with. Like my sister Florence was saying, some of them are really beautiful, and when they come in, our men are so excited seeing such beauty, and they feel like jumping on them, you know, like angry, I don't know. So it makes them feel or become very, very vulnerable, and they do not know what to do at such a moment. This is a place you have come to for refuge, for safety, and again, you have to deal with challenges of people who want to take advantage of you. Philip, this is a very pertinent issue, and the community I work with as refugees, they are extremely vulnerable, and it really makes issues of gender-based violence to be at its peak because they do not have a means of livelihood. They do not have anyone to confide in except the agencies that you've been mentioning. Like in the refugee settlement, we have UNHCR, we have Office of the Prime Minister, and so many other INGOs that work to ensure that these persons of concern are actually, protected and cared for. So what we do as Wezesha is we come in as a women organization to try and give them a safe space where they can feel welcomed, embraced, and where they can really freely express themselves, just as simple as that, where a woman can come and talk about the challenges she's facing. Sometimes we think solutions are complex, but it could be as simple as giving a listening ear to someone. Just sitting there and listening to them cry out, tell you how it has been, it's not easy for them. That is already a therapy. So we provide also psychosocial support services where you just sit and allow them unpack the heavy burden within them. And sometimes someone walks away with smiles, with lots of hope in their eyes. You can literally see. Yeah. These are some of the solutions we are providing. And then we also handle harmful social norms through awareness creation. Philip, I must bring to your attention and our audience that there are really some harmful cultural norms and practices that we wouldn't want it continued, either to us or to our children or to our grandchildren. For instance, a culture that expects a young girl who is undergoing her menstruation period to sit on a dark hole for more than a week just because she's bleeding. What is that? It means you have excluded her from the home, and these holes are not dug near the home. They are dug far away in the bush because you're considered as, it's something they don't really welcome. They expect you to be bleeding, so you should sit in the bush, bleed there until you've finished your menstruation, and you come back home. So while you're there, they take for you food there when they want. They take for you water there. Just picture this. You're like an animal. So these are cultural norms that we do not want to be continued in our societies today. And it is the women and girls who are going through this. This is not something simple. So yes, as a marginalized community, the refugee setting, we are there to give women a space just to be women and to be listened to and protected from all forms of violence. We know at least 1 in 3 women face violence in their lifetime compared to 1 in like 13 men. This is not a simple margin. It's a very wide gap. So when you see us talking about women empowerment, like at Wezesha Women, we empower these women to simply speak up. That is also a form of empowerment. Can you come out and say, no, I'm being violated, other than keeping quiet? Can you empower a woman to be able to do business that will earn her a living instead of waiting to ask for 1,000 shillings from the man who will come back late in the night and they've been starving the whole day? That is the form of empowerment we are talking about. And this is why we advocate for women empowerment, because they've really been left behind. That you wouldn't want, for us who are parents, you wouldn't want your girl to remain in that margin, in that gap. You talked earlier in our opening, you talked about norms that would not allow women or girls eat chicken. I don't think right now, if I have a girl and a boy, I would serve my boy chicken and then I sideline the girl not to eat it. This is violence. Come on. Yeah. So this is
Wow, thank you,
something
Barbara,
very,
for that. And
yeah.
yes, thank you so much for that. And I'll pick you on a little later as I will come to the end of the conversation. And Florence, I'm back to you. And many times in our communities, we found ourselves in positions where, for example, a person applies for a job, and when they fail to get that job based on competence, they go out there and pull out the gender card. They say, I was not given the job because I'm a woman. They spoke to me this way because I'm a woman, yet it is the same way they would speak to any other person of a different gender. Maybe I was not allowed to pass because I'm a woman. Where do we draw the line between our normal human collisions in society that are bound to happen because we are not perfect, and the collisions that are actually categorized under gender-based violence?
Thank you very much. That is a beautiful question. I think I want to say that I would love that when somebody is applying for a job, it should be given on merit. It shouldn't be given to you because you are a woman, because at least when you are applying for a job and when an interview is being conducted, that organization is looking for someone who can execute certain roles and responsibilities. So I encourage girls to at least make sure that they acquire the competent skills so that when they are attending an interview, they also compete favorably with boys. But I don't think even at my organization, I cannot simply give offer a job to somebody because she's a female if she cannot competently execute the roles and responsibilities that job is offering. So those girls, I implore girls, if the girls are listening, can you, when you go to school, when you have that opportunity, can you aspire to acquire competent skills that will enable you to compete favorably with the men in the job or market? So we should not take that. But on the other side, some girls have suffered. Before they are given jobs, they are asked to offer some. They are slept on. They say, you come to my office, because you have seen some girls have come to us, they are crying. For example, at Quid, some girls come, they say, but we say, if that one is going to be your boss, don't you think he will be your husband during the day? Because if he sleeps on you before you get to the job, what will happen when you are already in that office? So that is the advice. Girls should not just give in to be slept on by men that in the favor of being given a job. In fact, there are some people even tell us that there are some girls at university who are given added some marks because they have given in for their stake. So I encourage girls to be brave, to say no. You should not be given a job. Your organs should not accompany your CV to get a job. Know that you are now going to be a slave to that boss who has given you a job on first sleeping on you. And then the boss says, kindly treat the girls equally like boys. Give them and don't favor them in any way. Tell them that you have lacked this competence, so I'm not offering you this job. First, go and upscale your competencies. But in the real sense, some girls, some women are being slept on to be promoted, to get jobs. But I say that women who have given in for sex is equally doing a disservice. You should stand firm and you say, I've come for a job. I'm not coming as a housewife or as a girlfriend. That is what I normally tell the girls. And when I get a space with girls, I normally talk to them, please make sure when you are applying for a job, you are sure, sieve through and see if you are qualified for that job. and non-tenament that did not give you the job if you are not qualified. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Florence, for that. And hopefully the girls and everyone out there gets to feed into that knowledge and advice from you there. And Godfrey, specifically for Karamoja, but also broadly for the other communities, what interventions do you think can make a difference in that community? And that is probably from government, from international agencies, from the United Nations. What key interventions do you think can create a difference in an area like Karamoja or any other area in our country as far as matters gender-based violence are concerned? Yes, Godfrey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. What can work is, first of all, what we call enhancing policy and increasing justice outreaches in Karamoja. We have seen situations where some institutions have provided pro bono legal services and provided women safe spaces, bringing a little bit of interaction that are healthy to engaging. In particular, if I talk about FEDA Uganda, these are women who came, women lawyers, and have come to interact and say, no, let's provide, let us understand each other. And when there are cases, they provide now an avenue where they can be, concluded legally, not just concluded illegally. Because in our place, we do a lot of gender-based violence, violence against women, but we conclude them illegally, sorting them even before they go to court. Meaning women from the first thing, when crime is committed, they feel shy to testify. Because if they testified, then they will be relegated socially in their communities. So ours is to create this platform where they can safely go and communicate. And I love always, even in police, issues of child and family and so forth are not meant to be public. So this should be encouraged, that they should be kept to converse, because how these two people came to understand each other, how they chased each other, how they loved each other, apart from our Karamoja where you start loving after, but it's already enough conversation to say what is going on. And we have seen this engagement, even men now testifying that, I have given this woman so much, is not able to provide for so much a family and handle. And I've liked these women lawyers, they handle both. You take your part and do it, take the other part and do it. Although initially when they came, it looked as if they were witch hunting. They were hunting for men who are not providing for their families. And yet, later on, they came to realize that even the men were overworking and women were not supporting them. And so the family collapsed. So those conversations. And another thing that we can do really is, as I say, increase justice centers' presence in Karamoja. A lot is taking place and nobody is bothered. And yet elsewhere in the country, these services are provided even by government. But for us here, it's just as if, well, it's an option. And it gives a leeway to corruption, bribery, and so forth. If I'm a rich person, I abuse, and I pay off, the miserable police can just perpetuate and allow that. I remember a project of building a bridge in Kabong, where the mother and a daughter would go and sleep in the same camp. Meaning at the end of the day, we are promoting that we sell our bodies when there are opportunities. But I think this conversation, locally led solutions, allowing women to walk the talk, and empowering women-led organizations to champion. I saw this with UN Women. They came up looking for women organization, give them the tools. This gives them the tools to continue even when they leave. And I encourage this across Uganda, not only for Karamoja, because there are nitty-gritty things that happen. Another important thing is really empowerment, economical empowerment of women. For me, a woman who is economically empowered is an empowered woman fully, because they don't they don't have the risk of being manipulated, of being abused, or being used. Sometimes they have an assertive role in society and in their own homes. And I encourage if these women can have personal businesses that without necessarily looking at the man, the relatives and what, and
All right.
instead
Thank you,
becomes the
God.
voice.
Mm.
Probably we need the mentors. We need women mentors. A woman who has gone to school, come back to serve their own society, their own community in a more dignified manner. This is lacking in the rural areas. We need women who champion the cause. They walk the talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey, for that contribution. And Molly, I want to hear from you as we get to the conclusion of the conversation. I want to hear, is gender-based violence-free community actually possible given the circumstances of humanity and the world where we live? And if it is, in your view, how can we achieve this as a country?
I beg your pardon, please.
I want to pick by way of conclusion your recommendation, and I'm asking, is a gender-based violence-free community possible in our communities, and how can we achieve that so that we have good living for all citizens of our country?
Yeah, of course we are positive. Yes, that's why we are doing these dialogues, because we are trying to promote that a time is going to come where we have communities which are of less or none gender-based violence. Yes, by faith we believe that we will reach there. And like you're asking, what more can we do? Yeah, we need to do more awareness and sensitization of our communities about the effects, about the cause, about how we can live at peace with one another, and also provide access points and for reporting mechanisms where people know that even if I don't have someone to open to, I can run to the police, I can run to the gender-based violence service office, I can run here, and then I get services. I think most times why people don't open up or they don't seek for services because some people are ignorant of the law. Especially people who are not studied, they are ignorant of the law. They don't know that I have my rights as a person. They think like we all come from African culture. We know the man is the head of the family. What he says, if he says me not to work, I will not work. If he beats me, I have nothing to do because I can't go back home. So, and even if I go, people will, domestic violence reporting comes with shame, with the low esteem. So people try to bottle in all those feelings in the name of maintaining the outside appearance. But if people are confident of the mechanisms of reporting and assessing help, and they can trust that they work, people will speak out. So the other thing we need to do is strengthen the law or the legal system, because people at times, like someone was saying, someone can go and report, and even before you leave the police station or wherever you have reported from, the other person who has done the damage has already been released. So there is no justice, there is corruption. So all those things contribute to domestic violence, because someone knows, even if I beat you, even if you go and report the police, I will reach there, I will give them money, and then I will go out. So someone is like, last time I reported and they released the person, so why should I go back? So if we can strengthen those legal services and make sure there's justice, there are punishment given to people who do these acts, and then we do what we campaign, and then we also need to bring men on board. Like the speaker before said that we need to have mentors who are women. So do we need have men who can rally and campaign behind campaign for domestic violence-free community, and come out and speak to men and tell them it doesn't prove that you're big to beat a woman, and campaign so that we can really work against this violence, because we are not going to use one approach. We are going to use all the approaches available. It means the legal, it means counseling, it means going everywhere, advertising on the radio, on the TV, campaigning, doing community engagement, mentorship, neighborhood, people being responsible for their neighbors. We are living in a generation which is very funny. Like you're in people no longer care. You can be in your house and your neighbor is next and they are beating them, and someone will not even open to see what is going on. Why? Because people have become selfish. People are desperate. People I know, I don't know what is happening, but people don't want to know. Someone is like, if I go there and the person says, who called you? What will you do? But you see, that is not carrying a heart of servanthood. We need to be responsible of our neighbors, because wherever we are living, before even your family members come to you, your nearest neighbor is someone who is near you. If anything happened to you, that would be your number one neighbor before even your relatives come. So if we don't be responsible of one another, wherever we are, whether at work, whether at home, whether in the village, we need to be responsible of our neighborhood and of our neighbors. If you meet a child and they have bruises, you need to stop them and ask what happened. Because at times, even children are really being battered and no one is responding. So we really need all of us to wake up and take ownership of our communities so that we can end domestic violence. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mole Businje. And once again, I want to commend all the efforts you are undertaking in your different organizations, and from the refugee community to Paramoja to Kigezi, and you all, thank you so much. And of course, in the counseling department, thank you so much for the initiatives you undertake. And of course, there is another initiative I want to shout out for here, the Digital Rights Campaign by the Center for Constitutional Governance that tells women and all victims of any form of violence to speak up, to record the details of the activities that are being undertaken, and certainly be able to report with evidence, and then they can be assisted by the different agencies that are supposed to assist them in the violations that are being committed against them, but also the HOPE initiative, again, under the Center for Constitutional Governance, that teaches students in the different universities and other higher institutions of learning about their rights, and encouraging them to always speak out, but also seek justice in the different areas they reside in, so that they are not treated unjustly by those that are actually supposed to either protect them or even look after them in the different spheres of life. And once again, let me say thank you so much for the knowledge you've shared with us, for the experiences you've shared with us. This is a very important and fruitful conversation, but I see we have just 2 minutes out of here, so I will appreciate once again Barbara Kia Etum. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you so much for joining this conversation and for the knowledge you've shared with us. Barbara is the ED at Wezesha Women's Initiative. Thank you so much. And also Florence Tumherire, the ED Chigezi Women Involvement. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. Always, whenever we call you upon. Lena Godfrey Lokwang from Karamoja, and the inspiring story from Karamoja. Thank you so much for making time for the conversation, and indeed for sharing with us all that you've shared with us today here on the conversation. And our counselor, Mole Businje here, thank you so much for your thoughts, for your knowledge, and always showing up to share with us knowledge as regards the matter of handling victims of the different violations that happen in our communities. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it Community Voices Uganda and the wider Civic Space TV. Special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance and all the partners that have made this space possible, and many of the other spaces that we continue to have to speak about these matters that shape our communities. And hopefully we'll continue doing this to make a contribution to the growth, to the development, to the progress of our nation, Uganda, but also the wider continent of Africa. My name is Philip Melissa, and once again, thank you so much, you all on the panel, and I wish you all a very, very good day as I continue with the rest of the activities you're undertaking, and of course, good celebrations as we roll down these days of activism against gender-based violence worldwide, and hopefully one day we shall have a gender-based free world as we move on. I don't know, I think Florence, want to make a very quick comment. I will allow you 30 seconds to make it, and we shall be out of here, please.
Yeah, I want to thank you for this timely space when we are approaching the 16 days of activism, and keep this conversation running as we begin on the 16 days of gender-based violence activism of 25th November up to 10th December. And if there are other opportunities, please let us keep talking. At least we can save some life, or we can make some change, looking forward to having a gender-based violence-free society for all of us to enjoy our rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florence. And because I allowed you now, I can't deny the other persons that are requesting. Barbara, quickly, then we shall go to the other two.
Yes, these are very pertinent issues, and my last say is to the audience. I know there is a saying that silence is golden, but in instances where gender-based violence is happening, silence is murderous. Please do not keep quiet, speak up, and we shall hope for a violent-free society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And Godfrey. Godfrey, do you still want to say something?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
Hello.
About that is okay.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. And I must put this critically, especially for my place, Karamoja, and also other locations with similar culture, that critical elements that allow gender to persist is the culture of silence and shame. Victims are often pressured by family members and the wider community to endure violence to preserve family honor and avoid the stigma of any sort. I say, when violence is viewed as a private domestic issue rather than a crime, legal and social system often fails to protect victims, it becomes an injustice and it becomes something we cannot continue. Understanding this root cause will help us eventually to unlock the fabrics of deeply-rooted social norms that hinder economic freedom. It is possible we shall have a domestic violence-free Karamoja.
Thank you so much, Lena Godfrey Lokwang. And Businje, I don't know if you also want to make use of your 20 seconds.
Thank you so much for creating a platform where we can share knowledge, and I pray that even if we save one, we will have saved another. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, you all, for being with us today, and I wish you all the best. And I call you, please continue the different initiatives, and hopefully our country will turn out for the best. Thank you so much.